Welcome to my vertical obsession. I'm your host, Megan, and today we are talking about Love You to Death on DramaBox. And it stars Kristen Kendall as Brooke Ellison, and Kayla, and Ben Armstrong as Nate/Nathan. And the synopsis for this one is: rebelling against her perfect life, high school senior cheerleader Brooke falls into a hot and heavy romance with transfer student and new QB Nate. Everything seems perfect until she discovers that Nate has a very dark side. So diving into the characters, we have Brooke, who is trusting, sweet, oblivious, and also very fierce. She was way too trusting of Nate far too many times, especially when her gut would tell her to question him and things. She wanted to believe that she was worrying for nothing or just overreacting. She wanted to believe Nate was the sweet guy who cared deeply for her. She was oblivious to the red flags he kept throwing up. So many red flags. So many. Even her friend mentioned it. He is a walking red flag. So much. She tried to end it after he nearly beat a man to death for talking / kind of harassing her in a bar, but then stayed with him. This relationship between the two of them kind of gave me vibes of an abusive relationship, because he had kind of manipulated her to stay with him. While he wasn't physically abusive to her, he was still very, very controlling. So I think that also added to why she didn't see, or rather didn't question Nate more. His charm was able to fool her. She still had her doubts, but she just wanted to believe it wasn't true. When the truth did come out, she was ready to fight back. She risked her life to save her friend Augie and refused to let him kill her too. She fought to take him down, but he was a bit stronger. Thankfully, she was able to save Augie, and her father was able to save her. And with Nate, he was crazy, psycho, obsessive, murderous. He said he did these things in the name of love and wanting nothing to break him and Brooke up, but it was really his way of controlling everything. It wasn't really about Brooke, but his need to control things that he could have, and that could have been due to something in his past, but we really didn't get much about his life other than, his relationship with Kayla. I mean, and this could have been triggered by that relationship. He did mention that she cheated and that she stopped loving him, so he killed her. And that might have brought up this whole, if nothing can keep us apart and no one for Brooke to love, that he'll be the only one she needs. So he ends up taking things too far because he needs to keep Brooke no matter what the cost. He wants to be the knight in shining armor, but in reality, he's the one to save the girl from the danger he put her in. And like another example is he's putting out the fire that he started in the first place. He believes Brooke wouldn't want him if he wasn't around to save her. That also means he doesn't want her to be with anyone else. And in the end, if she wasn't with him, he'd kill her just as he killed Kayla. And it turns into if I can't have her, no one else can. So he has that mentality and ends up killing her or wanting to kill her. So that way no one else can be with her, or no one else can have her because he can't. So I found the story to be a little dark and twisted. It was definitely a stalker type series, for sure. And I really kind of love that they've kind of started to add some of these different themes and stories to the vertical categories. Because I know there are definitely stalker movies out there, and for me, those ones are ones that I will watch versus a horror movie, because I find the stalker genre to be less scary than horror movies. It's still very creepy and very twisted, but that's about as far as I go when it comes to like scary movies. I will not do horror, but darker ones I enjoy from time to time. And it depends on the story. Because, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, while it's teens getting murdered and kind of in the horror genre, I also find that it is a little bit in the stalker genre too. So getting back to the series, we got Nate, who fell for Brooke and wouldn't let anyone else have her, and those that tried to keep them apart were gotten rid of. He was possessive and obsessed. He kind of reminded me of Mark Wahlberg's character from the movie Fear, and Brooke kind of reminded me of Reese Witherspoon's character from the movie Fear. I kind of felt that this was very on brand for that movie. The similarities between them I found were so interesting. And I know there's a lot more to Fear, but it really gave me the sense that it was similar to that movie. And I know I had slightly brought this up in the last one I did, Bound to the Rebel Wolf, and I didn't say, because I was like, I didn't want to ruin the analogy I was making for this one. So I was like, but this was the one I was using. So as I said, in Fear, Mark's character falls for Reese's character and would do anything to keep them together, which is the theme of this series. And I also, made mention that there are probably other series out there that are very similar to this, but that's the one that popped in my head the most because that's one of the movies that I like, because I am a fan of Alyssa Milano, so she's in that. So I watched it watched it for her, and I really enjoyed the whole movie because it really gives this whole small town girl who falls for a bad boy who turns out to be crazy and fights back to save her friends and her family. And I really loved that, even though it was a very stalker genre film, but I still very much enjoyed it. And the ending was, the just desserts. So this series was one that gave off very creepy vibes. And you kind of wondered if Nate was going to get away with everything that he had done. Also, no one was more suspicious sooner, which was very strange. I mean, yes, there were questioning, and Augie and Brooke's other friend Liv also kind of were questioning a bit, but there really wasn't too many questions until later on. And I'm just like, he's done some suspicious things and no one's questioning it. He's also acting very suspicious. And then again, I pointed out how stalker series and movies like this, they aren't very scary, at least to me. Might be to some other people, or they might be triggering to other people too. That I can understand. But for me personally, they aren't very scary. They aren't quite horror movies, but they do still have, like jump scares and freaky movie. It all depends on how it goes and what level of scary they go. Now, I know that two off the top of my head, actually, there's three that I know off the top of my head, which is Swim Fan, Fear, and Abandon. And for me, they weren't as much scary in the sense of horror, but in kind of like a psychological, freaky, scary, because you're like, there are people out there that do exist like this. You may not see them daily, but there are people who exist who are this obsessed with someone or will do something like this to be with someone. So it's kind of more that scary versus jumping out and killing kids or some sort of crazy blood-filled death that some horror movies do. So I find that that's the scarier nature of a stalker film. And that's what this series kind of brought, is that whole like, well, you have this Nate character who will do anything to keep Brooke with him, and the lengths that he will go to keep her by his side is very out there and makes you kind of fearful that this is something that could happen, you know? Did mention that this was kind of low key, a little freaky, but it's still enjoyable to watch. There's a lot of suspense, and there was also a lot of like, wait, what moments type of thing. So, and I also have to I also have to commend Ben Armstrong, who played Nate, because he really did a good job at playing Nate in this crazy psycho character. It's like he like I said, he did a very good job. I was a little freaked out by the character, very much so, and I was just like, okay, wait, what are you gonna do? Because I mean, some of the other ones that I've seen with him, he's been the charming bad boy with the heart of gold and a softer side boyfriend versus this role, which is he's just batshit crazy and he's just out there trying to kill people. So it was very fun to see this. And I love when you can see actors who play these good roles turn and play a crazy murderous or villain like this and do it very well. Because sometimes actors get stuck in similar characters and they don't really get to explore other types of characters. So, like, if you have like the good boy next door or, the best friend, you don't always get to see them in another role of like the villain or the crazy psycho, which ends up being like typecasting, I'd say, for some actors. And it's very sad when that happens. Others, I don't think, mind it because, if it's similar roles and it keeps getting them work, then it works out. But I just know that sometimes it's nice to see like a range from actors. And Ben did fantastic playing this because he definitely, like freaked me out. The character was just creepy. And he just like really had a good look of like, I'm gonna destroy people when he wasn't putting on this whole like, I'm a charming good guy. So I gotta commend Ben for doing such a great job as Nate, for sure. So some of the things that I had questioned was like, how did Nate get on the football team? Like that was one question that I didn't quite understand. So, you know, he gets rid of Jimmy, the quarterback, and then suddenly shows up and now he's the quarterback, even though I'm pretty sure the team was already playing games and like tryouts had already happened. So it was just like, how did he get on the team? I guess you can assume that maybe he talked to the coach and the coach was like, sure, you can join. But I didn't think that was how it worked when it came to school sports like that. But I could be wrong. But also to the fact that Jimmy went missing and no one questioned it. It's like the coach didn't question it. None of the teachers questioned it. It's like it was mentioned once by the team being like, oh, he never showed up, especially after Nate joined the team, but it was never a bigger deal that your classmate just disappeared. Because that's the other thing. It's like Nate joined the team, he got rid of Jimmy, no one noticed Jimmy was gone. I mean, they did, but it wasn't made a bigger deal in the series. And then when he was found dead, that really wasn't mentioned either. It's like it was mentioned by the cop when he said that, oh, I talked to the boys on the football team, but otherwise it wasn't mentioned around school. No one freaked out about it. You think if their classmate was found dead, they'd be kind of freaked out? So that was one thing that I was just like, I feel like that should have been made a little bit big of a deal. And then move on to Reagan found with drugs, but no one questions if it was planted or what happened, especially since Reagan the day before had shared a video of Nate and Brooke together, and then suddenly she has drugs in her locker. It's like, and the look that Nate gave Brooke after it happened, it's like basically proving that he did it Of course, she asks him, and he's like, "Well, if you don't wanna know the answer, then don't ask." But other than that, it's just like, no one's worried what's going on. So it's just like going like, how did Nate do this? Because he did these things out in the open. It's like no one really questioned this. It's like Brooke Friend did, but it wasn't until Brooke and Nate went away to the cabin that they started to worry a little bit. And I'm just like, how did he get away with this? Because he wasn't very anonymous and he didn't really do it in the shadows. And maybe it's because maybe since watching the series and you're knowing it's happening, it's a little bit easier to see that it happened. But at the same time, I'm just like, I feel like it should have been more of a question. Maybe not the fact that Nate did it, but at least more of a question. It's like, I feel like people kind of brushed some of these things off and were just a little bit too blind to it. And it's just like, okay. But then again, I guess if they do question it or they start to question Nate, it would kind of ruin the whole idea of the series. But I still think that Jimmy's vanishing and death should have been a little bit more talked about or freaked people out a little bit more. And then we have that final message. And that final message is now like, did he survive? Is he still alive? You know, or was that like a time text message? Was that supposed to send out at a certain time? Or did he survive that gunshot? Like, because then that made me think. And then I was like, oh, this kind of opens it up for a sequel. And my brain was like, oh, well, maybe it could go one of two ways. One way is if, they were to do a sequel, he moves on to a new school, takes on a new identity, finds a new girl, and it, all starts over again until maybe he's caught. And then the other was that he comes back and ends up going after Brooke and they have another final showdown. So it was kind of like, here's two ideas for like sequels. I was like, oh, I could see it going either way. And I think if it was to go into a sequel, that it would be fun because they definitely did open it up to a possibility that, oh, this could extend. There could be more. It could be a sequel. And it's just like, my brain is like going with like, oh, maybe this would be a good idea. Maybe this would be a good idea. And I know that's kind of like how some horror movies do it, is where they like have the killer or the villain dead in the end, or at least you think he's dead, but it turns out that they survived and now they're coming back for revenge or they're moving on to new places and killing more people. So I think it'd be fun to kind of explore that with this series if possible. I think that'd be just a little fun. I also didn't write it down, but as I'm talking, and I should have mentioned it, one of the things that I didn't realize at first, but I kept going like, is that the same actress? Was the fact that the actress who played Brooke was the same actress who played Kayla, just in a wig. But it didn't dawn on me until like closer to the end of the series, and I was just like, I'm a little bit of a fool. I can notice little mistakes, but that I I I was a little slow on the uptake of that one. But I did kind of question it at the beginning. I was like, is it the same actress? Or does it just look like her? I was like kind of questioning it. But I do love that they did that to make her more resemble Kayla. So that way it made more sense as to why Nate was drawn to Brooke and why he clung to her, and also to why he called her Kayla from time to time, is because it was the same actress playing that character. Just they changed the hair to make her look different, to make the two characters look different, but still similar. So I love that. And I love that it did take a little bit for me to figure it out, because it makes it more interesting to know. Makes it more interesting when you don't know if they're the same actor, type of thing. And that you sit there going like, wow, they did get someone. So wait, no, it is the same actor. So type of thing. I know that kinda seemed not sure if that made all the sense that I thought it did, but I feel like you can get the gist of where I'm going with that. Anyways, so the rating I gave for this one was an 8.2, that I really enjoyed it. I loved how it was a little bit different than the normal, and I loved the creepy stalker vibe of it. So much fun to watch, and I love that they've kind of started doing that a little bit because it's a step towards a more mainstream type category and genre when it comes to a series, I feel. But I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts on the series. Do you think that Brooke should have figured out things sooner? Do you think that Nate is still alive? And if there was a sequel, how do you think it may go? So this has been talking about Love You to Death on DramaBox. I am your host, Meg. This has been my vertical obsession, and until next time.